Hello everyone, how are you doing? I'm doing excellent because I am so excited to talk about Trigun. As some of you may already know, I began watching this anime because a Trigun fan account, Wolfwood, tweeted about one of my favorite novels and it caused a whole series of incredible events. I made a video about it if you're interested. And now that I've watched it, what do I think? I love it. I really enjoyed the story and the highs and lows it took me on, and I have so many things to say. Obligatory spoiler warning for Trigun 1998. I'm going to talk about this assuming everyone knows who and what I'm talking about. The story begins with the introduction of our main characters, Vash, Meryl, and Millie. I really like the duo of Millie and Meryl, and I'm especially a fan of Millie. I love that she's so tall and physically strong. She's a little absent-minded, very kind and compassionate, but as the series progresses, we see that she is no pushover. Millie has no problem whipping out a giant machine gun if that is what the situation calls for. And I really like that. I don't like when the character who's really kind and gentle embodies those characteristics so much they become a liability. It's such an interesting choice to have them work for an insurance company. It demonstrates to us as the audience the scale of the destruction that follows Vash, the humanoid typhoon, before we have the chance to actually witness it ourselves. The color and lighting choices in this anime do an excellent job at conveying how harsh the environment of this planet is. It just feels hot and dry and uncomfortable. That kind of too bright sunshine that just hurts your eyes and burns your skin. The introduction of Vash is really good and provides a little summary of the recurring themes of the character. He is minding his own business when trouble finds him. The trouble is so intimidated by him and his reputation that they resort to extreme violence in order to subdue him. Vash is usually fine, but the surroundings are obliterated and innocent bystanders are placed in danger. He is both a badass and a clown, my favorite dynamic. And finally, he doesn't want to fight. And he doesn't want to hurt anyone at all.
After all now, this land is made of love and peace!
He's a gentle soul, I think naturally non-violent. But he also understands that violence is sometimes necessary in order to protect the innocent. However, even knowing this, Vash will go to extreme lengths, causing himself severe bodily harm in order to avoid inflicting injury on even the worst of people. We see physical evidence of this in the brutal scars and old wounds that cover his body. And we have to wonder, is that a good way to live? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Another question that comes up for me is how much of this is his natural impulse and how much comes from Rem. Rem is the most influential figure in Vash's life, having raised him and Knives. Knives, vicious murderer. Vash, a sweetie pie. She taught him that murder is never okay, and no one ever has the right to take someone's life. Well, a human life. I'm sure they eat animals. Anyway, she also taught him a song that I'm quite fond of. The moment when Meryl knows the song too and sings it with him was lovely and made me smile. Which was nice because I was filled with devastation after episode 23. But I am getting ahead of myself. How much about the way Vash lives his life comes from him and how much comes from Rem's teachings? That is a question Vash asks himself as we follow him through the series. Again and again, he is faced with terrible villains who wreak havoc and slaughter civilians like sheep. And each time he resists killing them. He could end them and prevent further deaths, but he promised he'd never kill. He promised. But he wants to, and he can see how those deaths would even be a good thing. We meet Nicholas D. Wolfwood a few episodes in. Vash, Meryl, and Millie are pretty established, and we're familiar with their dynamic. When he's introduced into the show, the trio comes across him seemingly by chance as he's stranded in the desert. Now that I've seen the whole thing, I know that Wolfwood was on a mission to get close to Vash and guide him to knives. So, positioning him as someone in need of rescue that they just happened to come across was a good idea on Wolfwood's part. But knowing Vash, even if he just came up to the guy in a bar, Vash would have accepted him with open arms. He's just like that. I do wonder what Nicholas would have done if they didn't spot him in the desert. Well, perhaps his bike was actually just fine and he would have just driven ahead and tried the whole thing again. It doesn't matter. Thinking about that first meeting, I can't help but wonder what's going on in Wolfwood's mind. It's immediately clear that Vash is a good person as he jumps into action to save a child just as Wolfwood does himself. As they're thrown into an adventure and fight side by side, is he forgetting that this is a job and genuinely bonding, thinking, hey, this guy isn't so bad. I kinda like him. I think that's likely. Do you think he's bummed he has to betray him one day? When they're pining after the same woman and entering a shooting competition, is he wishing there wasn't this cloud hanging over it? Vash is so earnest, so straightforward, and Wolfwood is not. But he is a very cool character, and I liked him. He's got great cleavage, and I liked that too. He stands in sharp contrast to Vash, Millie, and Meryl because he sees the world as a much darker place. He expects the worst outcome and acts accordingly. But they continue to strive to achieve the highest outcome even though they fail all the time. And, unlike Vash, he would and does kill people. As he spends time with them, they begin to rub off on him, and he falls for Millie. They open his eyes to a different way of living in this world. But it's not easy to let go of an entire lifetime of experience. Every time Wolfwood left the group, I wondered why. I'm just like, stay with them, Wolfwood, join the team. But I think he's afraid to be like them, to live like them, to hope for the best. Always. At the start of the series, I assumed Vash was a human just like everybody else. Just like super badass. You know, that's not uncommon in anime. But as I watched through, a suspicion began to arise. At first, I thought Vash isn't just a human, like maybe he is altered in some way. And then he knows how to operate the alien technology, and he communicated with the plants, and it's revealed that he destroyed July 25 years prior. And I was like, yes, Vash is not a human. And then, when his arm morphed into that energy pulse gun thing, I was like, oh wow, Vash is not a human being. The design of this angel arm thing is really, I don't know, it just hits me in that uncanny or uncomfortable spot. The moment held a lot of horror for me. I really felt for Vash in this moment, and how horrific having your body change so drastically without your consent must be. I hoped until the last moment that we'd avoid disaster and he could stop it. But he doesn't. And he often doesn't. People die around him all the time in really devastating ways. And often the danger is only there because of him. Vash is such a tragic figure to me. It's like he's cursed. When Wolfwood finds him living life as a completely different person, a large part of me wants the priest to just leave him alone. Let Vash have a quiet life in the middle of nowhere.
You know, I was kind of fond of my new life here. I really hate to leave.
I believed that Wolfwood believed that Vash had too much to offer to remain hidden in one random town. I thought he didn't want him to lose hope and give up. I thought Wolfwood wanted Vash to help deal with other bad guys and wrongdoers in the surrounding towns. Like this Knives guy whose name was sprawled on a monument. But it's not as simple as I first thought. Wolfwood's job is to attach himself to Vash and guide him to Knives. So, what's happening in this scene? A friend extending a helping hand to his downtrodden friend, or a man on a mission? It's probably both. Wolfwood is a murky guy. Even the fun argument they have about which town to go to next takes on a different dynamic once you know who Nicholas really is. Wolfwood is pushing for Vash to go to his town because that's where clues leading to Knives are. But Vash isn't ready to confront Knives just yet. And his reluctance puts a lot of people in danger, because Knives isn't going to let him go. It really takes a lot for Vash to truly embrace the fact that he has to go and find Knives. Okay, now I'm going to discuss Wolfwood's death, which I did not expect. In the episode before, he kills a child. This child is a member of a group of killers that have been hunting Vash down throughout the series. And I gasped when it happened. The setup is perfect. Vash believes he can convince the child to change, to release his murderous lifestyle and put down the gun. And he's talking to him in that earnest way he has, and I'm at the edge of my seat wondering if he can actually do it. Surely a child can be redeemed, right? And then he's shot dead, and the camera pans to Nicholas. I actually said Wolfwood out loud when this happened. He killed a child right in front of Vash and Millie and Meryl because he had to, because he thought he had to, because he felt he had to, because Millie and Vash and Meryl were in danger and he acted, and that boy was going to kill them. They don't think he was going to kill them, but Wolfwood knows. He knows what these kind of people are like. He knows, and their hope is silly and useless, and it was the right thing to do, wasn't it? It had to be the right thing to do. The child was going to kill them, and he had to save them. Because he doesn't live in the world that Vash and Meryl and Millie live in. He doesn't expect the best outcome. His instinct is not to save. In the following episode, we see Wolfwood struggle with his actions as we get a glimpse into the harsh, terrible environment he grew up in. There was no Rem telling him every human life is valuable. In fact, he had the opposite. He was surrounded by adults who viewed every life as useful or not, a means to an end. And ending lives became his trade, his escape. and his means to create safety and security for others. And then comes Vash with his big, beautiful eyes, making him feel like his way of living might be wrong. Could he have chosen differently? But Vash has no idea what it's like to be him, so how can he judge? He shot that child because he had to. Everything that he has done has been because he had to. When Millie brought him food, I was so relieved she wasn't ostracizing him and could accept that the situation was complicated. She doesn't hold it against him, even if she wishes he hadn't done it. When the camera panned away while their dialogue continued, I was immediately reminded of a certain scene from Evangelion, but I didn't expect it to actually happen in Trigun. I hated to see him pull a gun on Vash. I hated to see them both struggling, but happy to see them come together against a common enemy. And then, finally, Wolfwood makes the decision to live like Vash and not kill. He chooses to spare the life of his mentor / colleague / trainer / fellow killer, but the mercy is not returned. Wounded and bleeding, he has one last message for Vash before dragging himself and his massive weapon into a church. Poetic, isn't it?
Man is born a mortal being and we all make mistakes. It's part of the game. Just be more careful the next time.
It's hard for me to accept making mistakes like this.
Then, you can choose to suffer. That's also a part of the experience of mortal life.
And he's dying. He knows he is. For a moment, he seems to accept it. But then he rebels. Please, no, not now. I don't want to die. I just found a new way of living. I want to be with these people. I want to be with her. Please, no, I don't want to die. Not like this. Not now. And he does. I felt actual grief in this moment. For Nicholas, for Millie, for Vash, for myself even. Damn it, why did this have to be his ending? And Millie waiting in that chair for him to come back, and he isn't going to, crying even as she tells Meryl she's fine. Vash spilling his donuts and breaking down. Oh man, my heart. And of course, Vash doesn't get time to linger in his grief when it does come. He's being hunted and it never stops. He soon finds himself in a similar situation as his recently departed friend. Either take a life or watch the lives of your loved ones be taken. And I knew Millie and Meryl shouldn't have followed him. When Meryl was thinking about it, I was like, no, don't go. The best thing you can do for Vash is keep yourself safe. But love makes us do stupid things. And he does it. Vash takes a life for the first time, shattering his world. That was the one thing he didn't want to do. He is tormented. I failed. What could I have done differently? There's always a way to avoid taking a life. I just didn't see it. I wasn't good enough. I failed. Rem said there's always a way. If I was Meryl, I would have gone back inside and held him as he cried. But that's just me. And it's her words and actions that pull him out of despair, so he understands that we're not defined by our missteps or mistakes, or the moments when we act against our own beliefs in order to uphold them, like ending a life to save a life. As long as we hold our vision clear and return to our beliefs, we can continue to forge ahead. Before I discuss the ending, I want to mention a few random things I like about the series. First, Vash's character design and all the small touches. The orange sunglasses with the zigzags, the pierced ear, the freckle under his eye, this epic cross, and the fact that the red has a symbolism. I love that his ridiculous straight-up hairstyle is from Rem and reminded her of the man she loved. I've always loved Johnny Young Bosch, and his performance as Vash is excellent and really heartfelt. I love that Minnie carries Wolfwood's cross so easily, and it's well established that it is very heavy. I think the music is fantastic and unique. I love all the callbacks throughout the series. I like the wide range of characters that are introduced in the series and the kind of stories that get told. I like the themes that are delivered in both loud and subtle ways. I absolutely adore the final episode, finally revealing the full history between Knives and Vash. And by seeing Vash in the past, we see how much he has grown into himself and can be proud of the man he is now. The fact that he once contemplated ending his brother's life because he knew he was bad, and that the first time he really hurts anyone, it was Knives, and his brother's shock and pain and outrage at being injured. It's only when he leaves his brother's side that he's able to truly live. The fact that he aimed the blast that destroyed July right at Knives. And of course, he makes his brother's life a misery as soon as he can. And then we have the moment the show has been building to, with Wolfwood's cross and wearing a coat that represents Rem's favorite flower, with a hairstyle that reminded her of the man she loved. He faces his twin. I found the whole thing really impactful, and I was holding my breath and genuinely not sure what was going to happen next. In my opinion, Vash went through a kind of adolescence, or making that transition from a child who follows their parents' orders blindly and an adult who understands why their parent taught them those things in the first place, and came into a whole new understanding of how to live that comes from him, influenced by her, of course, but now he can make his own decisions without feeling so blindly obligated. So I wondered, does this mean that Vash is willing to kill his brother?
The humans treat you well? Did you have fun, dear brother?
I did, yeah. Best thing that ever happened to me.
The choice to have no background music is excellent and exactly right. It felt more impactful because the music throughout the series is so impactful. The music is very distinctive and noticeable, so the silence really stands out. Same thing with the lack of dialogue, because at this point, what is there left to say? They both know how the other feels. The sound of the gunshots and their heavy breathing as they fight and grapple with each other. Brothers and enemies. So much blood and so much time filling the space between them, and they're finally blasting it all away. And then it's Wolfwood's weapon that Vash uses to win the battle, giving knives a taste of mercy. Wolfwood and Vash together one last time in the final moments of the story.
What are you doing, needle noggin? It's right next to you. Use it, damn it!
He lifts his brother onto his shoulders. Take care of knives, Vash, and takes him home to Meryl and Millie, who have just struck water in their little desert town. And it's a great ending. My romantic heart would have liked a little kiss or declaration of love between Meryl and Vash. Something along the lines of, I'll give you half of my life and you give me half of yours. But then that might be too bittersweet, because one day Vash will watch Meryl die. But we're not going to focus on that. I'm going to watch Trigun Stampede 2 and I'll let you know what I think about that. But man, guys, I wish Wolfwood didn't die. I like Happily Ever Afters, and that one cut me really deep. But Vash takes off the coat, showing that he no longer needs Rem to guide him because he's truly his own man now. And that's really awesome. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching. Please help me out by liking this video and leaving a comment. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Kayla.